Your circle is shaping your future more than your habits. Let that sink in for a moment, because if you truly understood the weight of that sentence, your life would never look the same again. Most people assume that their success depends on discipline, routines, or motivation, but the truth is, even the strongest habits will crumble if you're surrounded by the wrong people. And that's exactly why today, we're going to explore one of the most uncomfortable truths you'll ever face on your journey of leveling up. You need to cut out 90 of the people you know. Not because you're better than them. Not because you're cold or heartless. But because if you don't, you will eventually shrink yourself to match the environment that's holding you back. Humans adapt. We absorb. We mirror. And whether you realize it or not, you become the sum of the people you consistently allow into your space. Think about it, every conversation you have plants a seed. Every complaint you listen to becomes a suggestion. Every fear someone shares with you can start to feel like your own. And every limitation they accept becomes a limitation you start to tolerate. This isn't philosophy. This is psychology. The people around you don't just influence you, they program you. So today, we're going to break down why your environment is quietly controlling your future, how toxic people disguise themselves as harmless friends, and what you must start doing today if you truly want to grow, evolve, and rise above the version of yourself that's stuck in the same cycles. Because here's the uncomfortable reality, most people in your life don't want you to improve. They want you familiar. Predictable. The same. Why? Because your growth threatens their comfort. When you start demanding more from life, you expose the fact that they settled. When you begin leveling up, you highlight the places where they stopped. And the moment you chase your potential, you force them to confront the truth they've been avoiding, the truth that they could have done more too. This is why you must learn to be brutally selective about your circle. Not because you're becoming selfish, but because you're finally choosing not to drown in someone else's negativity. You're choosing peace over chaos. Purpose over distraction. Growth over comfort. Maybe you've already started feeling it. That quiet disconnect from certain people. That intuition telling you someone isn't aligned with your future. That heaviness you feel after spending time with a friend who constantly complains, constantly gossips, or constantly doubts every plan you share. You walk away drained, not inspired. Confused, not motivated. Smaller, not stronger. That's not friendship. That's an anchor. And anchors don't help you move forward, they keep you exactly where you are. You see, people assume that toxic individuals are loud, obvious, easy to spot. But the truth is, the most damaging ones are often the quietest: the friend who subtly discourages your goals, the family member who jokes about your ambition, the coworker who says don't work so hard, the childhood friend who gets uncomfortable every time you talk about improving your life. These aren't enemies, they're invisible obstacles disguised as familiar faces. And most people never break free because they fear one thing more than failure: being alone. But let me tell you something powerful. Being alone is not the danger. Being surrounded by the wrong people is. Loneliness has never destroyed potential. But bad company has killed more dreams than any lack of motivation ever could. When you cut people out, when you shrink your circle, when you get intentional about your environment, something amazing happens: clarity. Focus. Drive. You start hearing your own thoughts again. You start recognizing what actually matters. And you finally gain the space to grow into the person you were meant to become. This isn't about hating anyone. It's about protecting your energy, your goals, your future. Because the truth is simple: you cannot level up while staying surrounded by people who refuse to grow. This is why cutting out 90 of people isn't cruel, it's necessary. Necessary for peace. Necessary for growth. Necessary for evolution. Before you can remove the wrong people, you need to recognize them. And here's the shocking part: most toxic people don't act toxic on purpose. They're not villains. They're not plotting against you. Many of them genuinely care about you. But they care about the version of you that fits comfortably into their world, not the version of you that is trying to rise above it. There are patterns you must learn to identify, patterns so subtle that you may have mistaken them for normal behavior. Let's start with one of the most common, yet most overlooked: the people who drain you without ever doing anything wrong. These are the ones who always need emotional support but never offer any in return. They complain about everything: work, relationships, life, but never take action. They treat your growth as a threat, even though they'll never admit it. They may say things like you've changed, not because you've changed for the worse, but because you've changed beyond the limitations they're comfortable living with. Then there are the comfort zone protectors. These people aren't jealous or malicious, they're simply afraid. Afraid that if you succeed, they'll have to confront their own lack of progress. So they encourage you to stay small, stay safe, stay the same. They'll say things like, "Why work so hard? Just relax. You're overthinking your goals. You're being too serious about life." It sounds harmless, but it's not. That mindset is contagious. You could be on the verge of a breakthrough, and one casual, careless sentence from the wrong person can plant doubt in your mind and slow your momentum for weeks. Another group you must distance yourself from is the subtle competitors. These aren't the loud, obvious haters. These are the friends who smile when you struggle but grow quiet when you win. They don't clap when you progress. They don't celebrate your achievements. Why? Because deep down, your success disrupts the unspoken hierarchy they've built in their mind. They'll always compare. They'll always one-up. They'll always shift the conversation back to themselves. You can't grow around people who see your progress as a threat instead of an inspiration. Next, let's talk about chaos creators. These are the individuals who bring drama everywhere they go. They're always fighting with someone, always complaining about something, always caught up in problems that never seem to end. And somehow, you get pulled into their emotional storms. Life is hard enough. You cannot elevate your future while constantly being dragged into someone else's turbulence. Peace is not a luxury, it's fuel. It's the energy source you need for discipline, ambition, and long-term success. And when chaos surrounds you, peace becomes impossible. But perhaps the most dangerous group of all is the dream dismissers. These are the people who don't believe in your vision because they've stopped believing in their own. They'll tell you your goals are unrealistic, your ideas are too big, your ambitions are too risky. Not because they're trying to protect you, but because they've accepted a life far smaller than the one you're trying to build. Their mindset is like a virus. If you expose yourself to it long enough, you will catch it. And this is why cutting 90 of people isn't an act of cruelty, it is an act of survival. Growth requires elevation. Elevation requires focus. Focus requires clarity. And clarity requires that you remove the noise, and most of that noise comes from people. But here's the twist: the moment you start distancing yourself, your life will begin to shift. Suddenly, you'll notice your thoughts becoming sharper. Your decisions becoming clearer. Your confidence growing stronger. Why? Because you're no longer borrowing the energy of people who drain you. It's in this solitude, this intentional isolation, that transformation starts to happen. You reconnect with your purpose. You rediscover your strengths. You rebuild your mindset. And you begin attracting people who match your future instead of your past. Cutting people out of your life doesn't always mean unfriending them, blocking them, or making some dramatic announcement. In fact, the most powerful transformations happen quietly. The strongest boundaries are invisible. And the most effective distance is created through behavior, not confrontation. The first step is awareness, truly observing how each person in your life affects your energy, your mood, and your direction. Not what they say, but how you feel after interacting with them. Do you feel motivated or drained? Focused or distracted? Encouraged or diminished? Your emotional response is the most honest feedback you'll ever receive. Start paying attention to the small things. Who supports your ideas instead of shrinking them? Who listens without competing? Who inspires you to be better simply by being in the room? These people matter. They are rare. They are priceless. Keep them close. But for everyone else, the people who drain you, distract you, or hold you back, you don't need to cut them off with sharpness. You cut them off by shifting your priorities. This is where the art of intentional distance begins. You start by limiting access. Instead of answering every message immediately, take your time. Instead of being available for every call, let it wait. You redefine the level of closeness, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You begin giving your energy to the people and activities that elevate you, not the ones that drain you. Then, you replace reactive habits with intentional routines. Toxic people thrive in environments where your life is unstructured, where they can pull you into drama, distractions, and emotional chaos at any moment. But the moment you build structured goals, schedules, focus blocks, they lose access to your time. Suddenly, "I'm busy" stops being an excuse and becomes your new reality. Next, you shift from emotional availability to emotional neutrality. This is powerful. You stop feeding the negativity. You stop entertaining the gossip. When someone starts complaining about their life for the 100th time, instead of diving into the emotional pit with them, you respond calmly, briefly, without giving the reaction they expect. This does two things: it breaks their pattern. It trains them not to use you as an emotional dumping ground. No arguments. No explanations. No drama. Just quiet boundaries. Another method is leveling up your conversation style. When you start talking about goals, mindset, growth, and discipline, something interesting happens: the right people lean in, and the wrong people pull away. This is one of the cleanest ways to naturally distance yourself from low-energy environments. People who aren't growing don't enjoy conversations that challenge them to grow. You don't have to remove them, they remove themselves. Then comes the harder part: accepting that some relationships will fade, even ones you deeply cared about. This is painful, but necessary. Growth requires shedding. You cannot elevate your life while clinging to people who only understand the old version of you. When your priorities evolve, your circle evolves. When your mindset shifts, your environment shifts. This is not betrayal, it is transformation. But above all, the most important step is choosing environments that match your future instead of your history. Spend time around people who inspire you, challenge you, or open your mind to new possibilities. Go to places where ambition is normal, where dreams aren't mocked, where effort is respected. Because the truth is simple: you don't rise to your goals, you rise to your environment. As you build these boundaries, something powerful begins to happen. You start protecting your peace. You start valuing your time. You start aligning your identity with the person you want to become, not the person others expect you to be. And slowly, the need to cut off people becomes unnecessary, because your lifestyle automatically filters them. When you shrink your circle intentionally, intelligently, and unapologetically, you will experience a psychological shift that most people never get to feel. It's a mixture of clarity, discomfort, empowerment, and silence. A silence that many people fear, but few realize is the gateway to their next level. Because here's the truth: when you remove the noise of unnecessary people, you finally hear yourself. Your thoughts get louder. Your intuition gets sharper. Your goals get clearer. The mental fog you didn't even know you were living in begins to lift. For the first time in years, you start to feel aligned, not influenced, not pressured, not shaped by others, but guided by your own internal compass. This is the psychological rebirth that happens when you reclaim your environment. But here's the part no one warns you about: the transition phase is uncomfortable. When you stop giving energy to the wrong people, you enter a period of solitude that can feel empty at first. Your phone is quiet. Your social life is calmer. Your mind has fewer distractions. And if you're used to living in chaos or constant involvement, that silence can be intimidating. But this silence is not emptiness. It is space. The space required for transformation. Inside this space, your mind starts recalibrating. You begin seeing your patterns more clearly, habits you tolerated, relationships you overextended for, conversations you didn't need, and people you poured into who never poured anything back. And once you see these patterns clearly, you can't unsee them. That's when the next psychological shift happens. Self-respect rises. You start recognizing your worth. You start valuing your time. You begin to understand that your energy is currency, and you've been spending it on people who never deserve the investment. This is where boundaries become natural, not forced. You stop over-explaining. You stop seeking approval. You stop chasing connections that drain you. Your presence becomes intentional. Your energy becomes selective. Your time becomes expensive. And as your self-respect rises, something else happens. Your standards elevate. Your conversations change. Your expectations shift. You no longer feel compelled to entertain mediocrity, negativity, or low-vibration behavior. You realize that the people who deserve access to you are the ones whose presence helps you grow. This shift isn't arrogance, it's alignment. But the most powerful psychological impact of cutting people out is this: your identity strengthens. You're no longer adapting to the energy of the room. You become the source of the energy. Without external noise, without constant influence from others' fears or insecurities, you finally discover who you are at your core. And when your identity becomes strong, your decisions become bold. You stop doubting yourself. You stop seeking validation. You stop hesitating on your goals. You start making moves based on clarity, not confusion. This is where momentum begins. This is where discipline grows. This is where breakthroughs happen. Because when your environment stops holding you back, your potential stops being suppressed. And all the ambition, all the creativity, all the purpose that was buried under the weight of the wrong people finally rises to the surface. But here's the twist you might not expect: as you evolve internally, your external world begins to shift too. You start attracting higher quality relationships, people with ambition, discipline, positivity, vision. People who don't fear your growth but fuel it. People who don't drain your energy but amplify it. This is the psychological reward for the courage to let go. You cannot meet the right people while you're buried under the wrong ones. When your circle changes, your entire life begins to reorganize itself. Not gradually. Not subtly. But dramatically. Because once you remove the people who drain your energy, distract your focus, and dilute your potential, you free up space for everything that actually belongs in your life. And that shift is powerful, far more powerful than most people ever realize. The first transformation you'll notice is in your mindset. When you're no longer influenced by doubt-filled conversations or small-minded thinking, your internal narrative evolves. You start believing bigger. Thinking bigger. Dreaming bigger. Because you're finally surrounded by silence, possibility, and your own ambition. You're no longer hearing things like, "Be realistic, that's too risky," or "You're trying too hard." And when those voices disappear, your inner voice becomes the dominant one, and that voice wants you to win. This is where confidence grows. Not from compliments. Not from social approval. But from alignment. Then, your habits start evolving. People underestimate how much their routines are influenced by their circle. If you hang around people who waste time, you waste time. If you're surrounded by people who complain, you complain. If your environment normalizes mediocrity, you naturally sink to that level. But once you remove those influences, something magical happens: your standards rise, and your habits follow. You sleep earlier. You wake earlier. You think sharper. You work harder. You make decisions faster. You create momentum that previously felt impossible. Not because you became a different person overnight, but because you removed the anchors that were silently weighing you down. Your success patterns begin changing too. Suddenly, you're taking action without hesitation. You're trying new things without fear. You're willing to fail, learn, adapt, and keep moving forward. Why? Because you're no longer listening to the people who used to slow you down with their fears, insecurities, and negativity. Without their influence, you start operating from courage, not caution. And then comes something even deeper: emotional strength. When you cut out toxic people, you also cut out emotional turbulence. No more being pulled into drama. No more absorbing negativity. No more managing other people's chaos. Without those constant distractions, you become emotionally grounded. You become calm. You become resilient. That inner strength is the foundation of every level up. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop taking things personally. You stop wasting energy on meaningless conflicts. Your peace becomes your priority, and anyone who threatens that peace becomes an automatic boundary. With your emotions steady, your focus sharpens. You begin seeing opportunities you missed before. You start recognizing patterns. You start building systems. Your goals no longer feel overwhelming, they feel attainable. Because your mind is no longer fighting off the emotional chaos of others. Then, something extraordinary happens: your life speed accelerates. What used to take months now takes weeks. What used to take weeks now takes days. You start making progress quickly because, for the first time, you're not moving against resistance. You're moving with momentum. But the most beautiful transformation appears in your identity. You begin stepping into a version of yourself you always sensed was there but could never fully access. A version of you that is disciplined, focused, confident, ambitious, and grounded. A version of you that makes decisions based on your future, not your past. A version of you that takes responsibility, not excuses. A version of you that refuses to shrink to make others comfortable. This is who you really are. You just couldn't see it while surrounded by the wrong people. And as your identity strengthens, something inevitable happens: you begin attracting a new circle. A circle that reflects your growth. A circle of high energy, high discipline, high vision individuals. People who talk about ideas, not people. People who chase goals, not gossip. People who push themselves, not hold others back. This new circle becomes the wind behind your wings. They challenge you, support you, inspire you, hold you accountable, and grow alongside you. This is the environment where breakthroughs happen. This is where transformations occur. This is where your potential turns into reality. But to reach this point, you must first walk through the loneliness. The temporary silence. The uncomfortable separation from familiar faces. Because once you do, you unlock a future only a few people ever experience. Cutting out 90 of the people you know is the cleansing phase. It removes the noise, the distractions, the emotional burdens, and the anchors that keep you from rising. But once the old circle is gone, you're left with a question far more important: who replaces them? Who belongs in the new 10? And how do you build a circle that elevates your entire life? This is where most people get stuck, because they think a better circle is something you stumble into. But high-quality people don't just appear. They're not standing on street corners waiting to be found. And they definitely don't enter the lives of people who haven't yet built the internal standard to match them. Great people, ambitious, focused, disciplined, emotionally intelligent people gravitate toward environments that reflect who they are. They're drawn to clarity, drive, and growth. They avoid drama, insecurity, and stagnation. So before you attract the right people, you must first become the kind of person who belongs in that circle. This is where the rebuilding phase begins. The first step is strengthening your identity. High-level relationships form naturally when you're aligned with who you are and where you're going. When your goals are clear, when your values are solid, when your mindset is strong, you create a gravitational pull. People can feel it in your energy, your conversations, your habits, your presence. Identity is magnetic. But identity alone isn't enough. You must build self-command. This means controlling your impulses, managing your emotions, keeping your promises to yourself, and walking away from anything that disrupts your peace. High-quality people operate with self-control. They avoid chaos. They value consistency. They don't attach themselves to people who act out of fear, insecurity, or emotional volatility. Once your identity and self-command are rising, the next shift happens. You begin curating your environment. This doesn't mean searching for perfect people. It means placing yourself in spaces where growth is normal. Places where people talk about goals, creativity, and ideas. Places where ambition isn't mocked, it's expected. Places where discipline is respected, not dismissed. You'd be amazed how much your life changes simply by being in the right room. Even if you barely talk, even if you're the quietest person there, your mindset shifts. You rise to the energy of the environment. You absorb new standards. You get exposed to new ways of thinking. And you start naturally attracting people whose values align with yours. Then comes the part most people overlook, your communication. High-quality relationships grow through intentional conversations. You stop wasting words on gossip and complaining. You start talking about goals, insights, lessons, progress. You ask deeper questions. You listen better. You contribute more meaningfully. The right people recognize that energy immediately. They're drawn to it. They respect it. They want it around them. Next is value alignment. The best relationships are not formed through history, they're formed through shared vision. You find people who want growth. People who want expansion. People who want peace and purpose. People who want to build something meaningful with their lives. When values match, everything flows easier. Conversations are smoother. Support is natural. Trust forms quickly. You don't need to explain your ambition, it's understood. You don't need to justify your goals, they're encouraged. You don't have to defend your peace, it's respected. And once you begin connecting with these people, something powerful happens. You start evolving faster than ever. You're surrounded by accountability. You're surrounded by inspiration. You're surrounded by examples of what discipline and consistency can create. You're surrounded by people who don't drain you, they recharge you. Your new circle doesn't make you question your potential, they expand it. Suddenly, success doesn't feel like a distant fantasy. It feels normal. Expected. Natural. Because everyone around you is chasing something. Everyone is building. Everyone is improving. And that energy becomes the new standard you rise to. But here's the truth no one tells you: you don't have to force this new circle. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to desperately search for it. You attract it by who you become. You attract disciplined people by becoming disciplined. You attract confident people by becoming confident. You attract growth-minded people by committing to growth. You attract emotionally intelligent people by mastering your emotions. Your circle becomes a reflection of you. Your circle is not just a set of people, it's a mirror. It reflects your standards, your mindset, your emotional state, your habits, and your identity. This is why your relationships change the moment you change. Because people are drawn not to what you say you want, but to who you truly are on the inside. Think about it: you don't see millionaires spending time with people who complain all day. You don't see disciplined athletes hanging around people who avoid effort. You don't see visionaries surrounding themselves with critics and doubters. It's not because they're elitist. It's because energy seeks energy. Identity seeks identity. Alignment seeks alignment. When you grow internally, your external world reorganizes naturally. Let's talk about identity alignment, one of the most powerful forces shaping your relationships. Every person has an internal threshold for the kind of company they feel comfortable with. If your identity is built on discipline, peace, and purpose, you simply won't tolerate drama, laziness, or negativity anymore. Not because you hate those people, but because your inner frequency no longer matches theirs. This is why some people suddenly feel distant as you grow. It's not personal. Your energy has evolved, and they can no longer resonate with it. You're not pushing them away, you're just not vibrating at the same level anymore. Identity creates compatibility. Energy creates attraction. Alignment creates longevity. This is also why your internal transformation becomes the strongest filter for your external circle. You don't need to tell people you've changed, they can feel it. You don't need to announce your boundaries, they notice the shift in your behavior. You don't need to explain your standards, they naturally adjust or drift away. Let's talk about energy, because it's one of the most misunderstood but important aspects of human connection. Energy isn't mystical, it's psychological. It's emotional. It's behavioral. Your energy shows through your posture, your tone, your confidence, your conversations, your priorities, and how you treat yourself. Low-energy people are attracted to comfort, stagnation, and distraction. High-energy people are attracted to growth, purpose, and clarity. When you raise your internal energy, your relationships shift automatically. Here's how: your priorities change. You no longer invest time in meaningless interactions. You choose depth over drama, focus over distraction, purpose over entertainment. Your conversations evolve. You stop entertaining gossip. You start seeking insight. You discuss ideas, goals, strategies, lessons. This naturally filters who can match your level. Your standards elevate. You stop tolerating inconsistency, emotional manipulation, passive-aggressive behavior, and lack of effort. Not out of ego, but out of self-respect. Your self-worth increases. You no longer chase people. You no longer beg for attention. You no longer explain why you deserve loyalty or respect. You simply embody it. Your presence becomes intentional. You stop being available to everyone. You stop giving emotional access to people who earn none. You become selective, not closed, but intentional. This internal shift creates a ripple effect. People will treat you differently not because they changed, but because you did. And the ones who can't match your energy will naturally drift out of your life without conflict, conversation, or confrontation. And this brings us to the next major transformation: alignment attraction. When you're living in alignment with your higher self, your values, vision, and purpose, you begin attracting people who align with that future. These are the ones who spark something inside you. The ones who challenge you. The ones who inspire you. The ones who elevate you simply by being themselves. You don't have to try to impress them. You don't have to pretend. You don't have to hide your ambition. You don't have to shrink your goals. They see you. They get you. They support you. They believe in your greatness even before it manifests. This is the 10 that replaces the 90 you let go of, not many people, but the right people. These relationships become the foundation for your next level life. They become your accountability, your inspiration, your emotional safety net, and your growth partners. But here's the truth: you can only attract aligned relationships when you stop settling for unaligned ones. When you finally build a circle that aligns with your future, everything in your life begins to accelerate. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. Ideas flow effortlessly. Discipline becomes natural. Your vision becomes clearer than ever. And perhaps the most surprising transformation, you begin to feel lighter, freer, more in control of your destiny than at any point in your life. This is what happens when you upgrade your environment. Your new circle doesn't just change your mood or your habits, they change your trajectory. Because the right people don't just cheer for you, they challenge you. They don't comfort your excuses, they call you out. They don't let you stay stuck, they push you forward. They don't see your goals as unrealistic, they see them as overdue. This is the difference between the 90 and the 10. The 90 distracts you. The 10 develops you. And it's in this elevated environment that your future begins reshaping itself. Let's start with your vision. High-quality people expand how you see the world. They expose you to new perspectives, new ideas, new opportunities, and new standards. Conversations become intellectual workouts. You learn faster, think deeper, and dream bigger. Your goals stop being fantasies and start becoming plans. Then your ambition multiplies. Being around driven people activates something inside you. You subconsciously adopt their work ethic, their seriousness, their urgency. You start showing up differently. You start treating yourself differently. You stop playing small because no one around you is playing small anymore. Next, your habits transform. You naturally start copying the routines of the people you admire. If they wake up early, you feel inspired to do the same. If they read, learn, and invest in themselves, you start doing it without being asked. Improvement stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. Then comes the deeper shift, your emotional stability skyrockets. High-level people operate with emotional intelligence. They don't bring chaos. They don't drain you. They don't guilt-trip you. They don't weaponize their feelings. Instead, they bring logic, calm, clarity, and encouragement. This stability creates a foundation for growth you never had before. And with emotional stability comes mental clarity. You make decisions faster. You waste less time. You overthink less. You stop doubting yourself. You start trusting yourself. You feel capable. You feel supported. You feel understood in a way you never felt with the old circle. This leads to one of the biggest transformations, your self-esteem evolves. You start believing you deserve good relationships, high standards, peace, and success. You stop accepting disrespect. You stop tolerating negativity. You stop settling for bare minimum effort from anyone, including yourself. With a strong identity and a healthy circle, your results inevitably elevate. Your projects move faster. Your creativity increases. Your discipline becomes consistent. Your execution becomes sharper. You start building momentum that previously felt impossible because you were carrying the weight of the wrong people. And then, life begins rewarding you for the internal and external changes you've made. You get opportunities that used to feel out of reach. You meet people who change your direction. You encounter chances that align perfectly with your purpose. You start stepping into rooms you once felt unqualified to enter. This isn't luck. This is alignment. You finally removed the things blocking your path. You finally had the courage to let go. You finally freed yourself from the people who kept you at the level you were trying to escape. And when you do that, the universe or life or destiny, or whatever you believe in, starts opening doors that were always meant for you, but could never reach you in the wrong environment. But here's something deeper: once you complete this shift, there's no going back. You can never return to the old version of yourself. You can never tolerate the old relationships. You can never exist in low-energy environments again. Your soul simply won't allow it. Because once you taste peace, chaos is unbearable. Once you experience growth, stagnation feels suffocating. Once you meet aligned people, the wrong people become unrecognizable. Once you feel your true potential, the old you feels like a cage. As time passes and you fully settle into your new environment, you begin experiencing something most people never feel in their lifetime: long-term alignment. This is the stage where your peace, your identity, your habits, and your relationships all begin working with you instead of against you. And this is where the decision to cut out 90 of people becomes one of the greatest investments you ever made in yourself. Let's talk about long-term peace, because this is one of the biggest rewards. When your circle is small and aligned, there is less drama, less conflict, fewer misunderstandings, and almost no emotional turbulence. Peace becomes the default, not the exception. You wake up with a clear mind. You go to bed without emotional clutter. You live without constantly being dragged into chaos. And here's the thing about peace: when you have it, everything else in your life improves effortlessly. Your work gets better. Your health gets better. Your focus gets sharper. Your intuition becomes stronger. Your creativity flows. Your stress drops. This is the long-term effect of removing the wrong people. You regain control of your inner world. Next is identity expansion. With a strong circle and a peaceful environment, your identity continues evolving upward. You're no longer the person others shaped you to be. You're becoming the person you were meant to be. And you start operating from your higher self consistently, making disciplined decisions, taking responsibility for your life, and acting with intention. You no longer fall into old patterns. You no longer feel pressured to prove yourself. You no longer settle for less out of fear or loneliness. You know who you are, where you're headed, and what you deserve. Your confidence becomes permanent, not loud, not arrogant, but grounded, calm, and unshakable. Then comes the long-term transformation in your success and performance. With a strong circle, your standards remain high. You're constantly inspired, constantly challenged, constantly supported. Your goals become more ambitious. Your discipline becomes your identity. Your execution becomes cleaner, faster, more consistent. You're no longer working against resistance, you're working with momentum. This is why high performers guard their circle so intensely, because they know success is less about talent and more about environment. The right people breathe life into your goals. The wrong people suffocate them. Now let's talk about your relationships in the long run. When you operate from clarity and alignment, you begin attracting deeper, healthier, more meaningful relationships in every area of life: friendships built on loyalty, respect, and shared values, romantic relationships built on emotional maturity and support, collaborations built on trust, ambition, and accountability, mentors and peers who elevate your thinking and sharpen your vision. Suddenly, you are surrounded by people who understand you on a deeper level. People who see your potential, not your past. People who support your growth, not your comfort. People who bring stability, not chaos. This is the circle you were supposed to have. This is the environment your soul was craving. This is the life you unlock when you stop settling for the wrong people. And then there's inner stability, one of the most powerful long-term effects. When you're no longer emotionally drained by toxic environments, you become emotionally strong. You don't react impulsively. You don't absorb negativity. You don't carry other people's problems on your shoulders. You operate with logic, groundedness, and unwavering emotional control. You respond instead of react. You process instead of panic. You understand instead of absorbing. That is emotional mastery, and it comes from peace, boundaries, and intentional relationships. Finally, there is the long-term transformation of your destiny. When your circle aligns with your future, your entire life starts moving in that direction. You begin experiencing breakthroughs you once thought were impossible. You start hitting goals faster than ever. You begin living with a level of purpose and fulfillment that only a small percentage of people ever reach. Because destiny isn't created in isolation, it's shaped by the environment you choose. And once you choose the right one, everything falls into place. When you finally arrive at this stage, where your circle is intentional, your peace is protected, and your identity is aligned, you undergo a mindset shift so profound that it becomes the defining turning point of your life. This shift isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It doesn't come with an announcement. It happens quietly, almost silently, but it changes everything. It's the shift from attachment to alignment. Most people live their entire lives attached to old friends, old memories, old identities, old environments, old emotions. They stay connected to people who drain them simply because they've known them for years. They stay loyal to circles that no longer reflect who they're becoming. They hold on to relationships out of fear, guilt, nostalgia, or obligation. But when you evolve beyond attachment, you begin to understand something powerful. Staying connected to the wrong people costs more than letting them go. The moment you truly absorb this, your entire outlook changes. You stop prioritizing history over growth. You stop valuing comfort over elevation. You stop keeping people in your life just because you're afraid of being alone. Instead, you start choosing relationships based on alignment, shared values, shared vision, shared energy, shared direction. This is where emotional maturity reaches its peak. You no longer feel guilty for outgrowing people. You no longer feel obligated to maintain connections that drain you. You no longer feel responsible for saving people who don't want to change. You begin understanding that growth requires distance. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Another major mindset shift is the acceptance of selective accessibility. You realize that not everyone deserves access to you, your peace, your mind, your time, your emotions, your presence. You become intentional about who you allow into your world, because you understand that your energy is your most valuable currency. People who value you will respect your boundaries. People who don't respect you will be offended by them. And that difference becomes the filter that protects your future. Next comes the shift into self-leadership. When you're no longer influenced by low-energy environments, you begin leading your own life with confidence and clarity. You're no longer pulled in different directions by the expectations of others. You start making decisions from strength instead of fear. You stop waiting for approval. You stop needing validation. You stop seeking external permission to pursue your dreams. You become your own leader, your own motivator, your own guide. Then there's the shift into standards over sympathy. This is where you stop lowering your standards to make relationships work. You stop tolerating disrespect, inconsistency, emotional instability, or lack of effort. You no longer say it's okay when it's not. You no longer shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You no longer confuse empathy with self-sacrifice. Your standards rise, and anyone who wants to stay in your life rises with them. But perhaps the most empowering shift of all is this: you stop fearing loss. Because once you've experienced peace, alignment, and the right circle, you understand that losing the wrong people is never a loss, it's a blessing. It's space created for something better. It's room made for growth. It's the universe clearing out what can't go with you to your next level. This freedom from fear changes the way you walk through life. You become bold with your goals, clear with your boundaries, calm with your decisions, selective with your time, unapologetic with your growth. This is the final transformation, the stage where the new you becomes permanent. You no longer attract the old patterns. You no longer repeat the old mistakes. You no longer entertain the old energies. You no longer fit into the old environments. Because you've become the kind of person who outgrew them long ago. This is the true result of cutting out 90 of the people you know, not loneliness, not bitterness, not isolation, but clarity, elevation, alignment, strength, peace, power, purpose, Your future doesn't unfold because you changed your habits, it unfolds because you changed your environment, your circle, and ultimately, yourself. This is where your life begins to expand. This is where you step into your highest potential. This is where your real journey starts.